Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to the Translating Europe Forum Newcomers Fair. We have Balazs Keys here to do uh, a talk for us on project management. So, Balazs, take it away.
Thank you, Amelia. So my name is Balazs Kish. I'm the founder of a tech company in the field, and I was asked to talk to you about project management. This is a here. This is a very early afternoon, and I'm coming through to you from gloomy Brussels, and I hope the sun is shining where you are sitting. So, without any further ado, let me just share my first slide. I hope you can see it. And this thing is not showing what I'm showing, so I'm really hoping that you are seeing this, because this has some contact information about me. So it tells you which company I work for, an email address where you can contact me with questions, and also LinkedIn if you want to get in touch with me that way. So project management is one of the service provision competencies as the European educational frameworks talk about translation. This is one of the things that for instance, European Masters of Translation Network needs to look at when an institution is joining the network. Today, I would because when I was asked to do this talk, I asked myself how many times 25 minutes do I need to talk to you about project management, and the result was too many. So today I want to talk to you about the why of project management, and less about the how. The how is something that you can learn about at the educational institution where you are studying, if there is one, or else the organization that you work for. I want to give you the big picture of what you need or you might need to be successful at translation project management. And it is my experience, and that's my experience. So I didn't bring hard data on that. That most active translation project managers come with a translation background, and I think it's a good thing, because then you will find it easier to look at the context of of how translation is done, especially in an industrial slash professional setting. So we are not. I am definitely not talking about literary translation or translation for artistic or other creative purposes. That's to my mind, that's a different profession. So what is really important here is that translation never just hangs in the air. It serves a communication purpose, because the original content that you need to convey for other cultures serves a communication purpose. That was an intention creating the original, and this intention needs to be conveyed in a way or another in the translation. And that's where it becomes tricky, because let me show you something. This is very close to my office in Budapest, Hungary. That's a multilingual window, not too far from the office. Someone recently moved to the country and the city, and wrote this on the window. Definitely had an intention to keep their environment cleaner than is usual for the neighborhood. Um, and people first started correcting this, because the original, that which was written in Hungarian, isn't perfect, because the person who wrote this up is a foreigner, and it's partly a prank and partly um, yeah, it's basically kind of a prank. It's absolutely people were using their sense of humor. It's not the original person who translated that, but because he said, or she said, I don't know, they said they were not Hungarian, people started translating this. And this is what we have. This message clearly has a purpose. And I think this window, which is completely secluded, it's hidden in one of the not so glamorous streets in a neighborhood of Budapest that is already outside downtown, should be a touristic uh, site. But what I want to do with this is to illustrate that this is communication with an intention, translation with an intention, that the original content serves a purpose, so the translation needs to serve a purpose. So it isn't enough just to translate. And sometimes, especially back at the time when I started dealing with translation, which was roughly between 25 and 30, between 25 and 30 years ago, um, there was a tendency, especially in education, to separate translation from everything else, and concentrate on the content, concentrate on written text mostly. Because when it comes to speech, then it was also moved over to the interpreters, and there was very little about audio visual translation. There was no experience handed over about, for instance, film translations. But when you translate, you need to be aware that the original comes with an intention, comes with a purpose, and you need to make sure that the audience in the target culture will be able to use it for the same purpose and the same way as the original was intended. And we talk about content, and it's also important to say that content is very diverse. So it's when we talk about separating translation from everything else, um, again, when we concentrate on the written text and see nothing else, so whatever context we look at is the context within the text, which in some cases is not even possible. For instance, I started looking at software localization and localized software at an early stage. We are talking about early to mid 90s. Then already, whatever you see, if you just look at the text, is strings, isolated strings from each other in a table. And the context is not in the text. The context is on your screen in the software that runs. But the same goes for onboard computers, onboard systems in cars or vehicles or other appliances. And so the content is diverse. It can take any form and shape. It could be text. It could be various formats of text. It could be just strings that is not running text. It could be audiovisual. It could be a combination of all those. And these are almost always part of an artifact, something that is not a book, not a piece of text, and and the the content that has the text, that has the language in it, has a purpose, and it's part of an artifact. And if it's the more integral this content is to the artifact, the more important the translation will be. So and when you look at it that way, so we've been told that yes, AI will translate everything. Yes, mostly unsupervised AI will be able to translate most content, which might even be true. More than 10 years ago, I was listening to a presentation. We didn't even have neuromachine translation back at the time. And then the speaker said, he used to work for a machine translation company, that way less than 1% of all text is translated by humans. Even back then, I'm talking about 2013. But the most important content is still uh, translated by humans or supervised by humans. I mean, the translation is supervised by humans. And why is that? Because the content, the purpose is important, and the context is important, for instance, for safety reason, and the context is outside the text. So if you look at a neural machine translation system, or even a large language model won't see the car, won't see the rest of pieces even in a piece of software. It won't be able to see the context. and that is still something for human to connect. But if we want humans to connect them, that we need to know that that translation doesn't hang in the air. So this is why we are back at. Um, and there are four parts of the environment that make up the context of translation. So there is an implementation, obviously. What does the content look like? What format of text is it? If it's text, is it running text? What kind of system is it coming from? Is it a Word document? Is it a content management system? Or is it audiovisual? Is it a combination of these? And what is the artifact that the that the content belongs to? How is it incorporated in the artifact? How does it need to get out of the artifact to be translated, and how can it be reincorporated? Does it need to be taken out of the artifact? So this is the implementation part that needs engineering, but that will come in the next slide. In the meantime, I'm not sure if we mentioned, but we are happy to take questions in the chat, which I don't see at the moment. But if you have a question, if you have a comment, don't hold back. So we will look at the chat when I finish talking, which will be soon. Um, and then there are the quality requirements. It depends obviously on the purpose of the text, on its role in the artifact. What is the purpose of the artifact and the content, and what does it mean for expected or required quality? So the way this language is used determines what level of quality we need. So if it's, for instance, just to find out how to, for instance, in YouTube, how to turn on automatic captions, how to turn on automatic translation, even these messages could be translated automatically. Whereas if it's about medical device or about medicine or anything like that, where uh, the quality can have an impact of someone's life, that's a different quality requirement. Again, I'm not talking about aesthetics. When the aesthetics of translation matters, I consider that out of scope for this presentation. And then there is time. You only have so much time to produce a translation. I come from technical publishing. With my family, we used to run a publishing company in the mid 90s, and there we had agreements with software companies because we were doing technical publishing and technical translations. That all right, they will buy this book, this 1,500 pages, if it's on the bookshelves at the bookstores in 6 weeks. Oh, and the source material is not ready yet. So that is a close deadline, but I have also saw deadlines and worked against deadlines that were within the day. So this could be a harsh thing, hence the graphic there. And we also have cost and budget. So producing the translation costs something, and there is also a price that we can ask for from the from the translation buyer, translation user. Um, this mostly applies to commercial translation, but these cost calculations and budget calculations are also done within larger larger organizations and corporations when translation is done internally. But still, they need to see an impact on the economic impact of on the operation of the audience. A word or two about the graphics here. So when you have a limited time to create a slide deck, where do you go? You go to the AI and ask it for pictures. That's what I did. Not in the first slide where I was showing the window. Those were photos. These are AI. These pictures are AI generated. As are the pictures on this slide, because when you have this context of implementation, quality requirements, time, and budget. Oops, and it falls out. Just give me a second. That's why I don't like earbuds. These are not conspicuous, but that my ears are somehow not fit for them. So from this foursome of four tuple. This is what we say. I forgot my English mathematics from 30 years ago. Anyway, so these four factors of the context, you can derive four parts of a translation project. You have preparation and engineering, which is a first and the last phase of translating something. Like I said, translation, the language is part of an artifact, so it needs to be taken out, translated, and the translation needs to be put back into the artifact. And the project manager needs to know how this is done. And when the content is taken out, you need to measure the content to see uh, how much effort, how much resources it will require to produce the translation, and also what price we would need to pay or price we would need to ask for when producing the translation. So that's preparation and planning, which also has an engineering part. So that's one part of the project. And then you need to plan the resources. You know what it takes to take the language out and put the translated language back, and you also know how much there is to be translated in what format. So now you have an idea of what resources you need, and then you need to find out what you will automate, what you will not automate. So what's done by the machine, what's done by the humans, how many people are needed to complete the task, and the lights go. But you can see the slide, so this is fine. um, and how much time that number of people requires to complete the task. So you can create a plan of what will be done when it will be done. And then you have budgeting and quoting, obviously. This is something I already talked about. So that's the financial part, because you cannot, if especially in case of commercial translation, you cannot do this uh, uh, while taking losses, or not all the time. So you need to be able to know what it costs and what price you can ask for. And like I said, you also need to know this when translation happens within an organization. And then quality control is a process. So it's not only translation, but making sure that the translation meets the quality requirements that are set by the environment, the artifact, and the kind of content that is being translated. So these are the four parts, and that what that says. Sorry, what that says is that a project manager is a Renaissance person, because they need to know how translation is done, but they also need to know how the translated content connects to the artifact it's part of, and they need to know the basics of automation engineering and finances and resource planning that go with this. So when you go and train to be a project manager, you will be taught all of that. Thank you. I'm almost at the end. So there are obviously pieces of technology that hopefully don't get in the way, but help your work. I am not advertising any particular one of them. I'm listing the classes of technology that you need to look up and use together. And that could be depending on the artifact, depending on the industry where the content is coming from. You might need to use a combination of these, and you might need to use specialized technology that connect all these translation automation tools to the technology, to the artifact that the language is part of. Uh, and there are a couple of standards about because what we are talking about is service provisioning proficiency or competencies. So that is really important to be aware of, the at least international standards that come to play here. So there is one about project management, another about translation services. And I realized I was going to recommend some books, but I realized that especially when it comes to technology, our world is being turned upside down. So I right now, there are a couple of basic books but there's a search that I would run if I were you. So I'm always relying recommendations by others. So when I'm looking for books on a subject, I turn to Goodreads.com, which is not an advertisement. I'm not any way in league with them, but I find this search more reliable than asking ChatGPT about this particular project. It's not always the case. I didn't hesitate to ask ChatGPT to Dali to give me the graphics for this, for instance. So that's why we end. So I realized that the graphics were sometimes quite grim. They suggested an industrial environment, and yes, we do talk about the language industry and the localization industry, but it's more colorful than the images suggested. Especially what I like about being a project manager, I tried everything basically in the last 30 years. So I kind of know what it takes to be a project manager. I can say that it's you get to deal with technology, you get to deal with people, you get to deal with text. So in a way, it could be stressful, but it's a colorful profession. I just want to recommend everybody to try it out, even when your first intention is to train as a translator. And that's all for me. Thank you very much.
So if we have any questions before the end, feel free to write them in the chat and we can address them. Or any comments as well, not just questions. Thank you.
Yes. Can I just go and address the questions? Now I turned on the chat. So Olivier asks, how does one find a translation project manager? Do translators make good translation project managers? Like I said, most of the time, most of the project managers I've seen came with a translation background, and I work for a software company where we have a product management team that contains many former translators turned translation project managers turned software product managers. So that is really a viable career path. Um, so most translation companies just advertise for translation project managers, but many translation companies are willing to train them. And I also know about translation companies that teamed up with universities um, that to introduce project management classes in the translation programs, especially in the master's programs. So what I do know for sure is in the European Masters of Translation program, the member universities must offer in the master's program project management training, and also should that's a should have, not a must have, that they should offer internships in partnership with companies to gain the necessary project management practice. Are we seeing a contraction of the translation management market, for example, with new management softwares? I don't think so. It's actually, and that is not a criticism of a question. It's not the best time to ask, but this is not your fault. This is what I told about the books, what I said about the books. That our world is being turned upside down, and translation management is here to stay. It might be insourced by some of the big organizations because they are embedding localization and translation more deeply into their processes, and maybe there is no single localization project to outsource, but it's still needed and it's there, might be insourced. And I also know from first-hand information that translation companies are trying to find a way, and translation tasks are getting more numerous, not fewer. So my gut feeling, and for now, that's all I can offer you, is that we might see a temporary contraction of the market, but that's temporary. And there's going to be expansion in the future. Thank you for the question. Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to take questions also in email, and which I will obviously share with the organizers when I get them. But I'm afraid that we are at the end of our time. So thank you everyone for being here and listening.
Thank you to you, Balazs, for your talk today. And thank you to everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.